Chief Deputy Charlie Rose.
Sorry.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. This agenda item that I've got is informational. A couple of meetings ago, there was a presentation that was performed for you guys in reference to an assessment being done on the jail and on the inmate population and of the court system in general. I'd already had a conversation with the county manager in reference to an assessment that the sheriff was looking into having done at the same time, that it falls under a lot of the same guidelines of that presentation, but it's through a different organization, and it would be federally funded with no funds that would need to come from the county. In the information packet that you have is the name of the organization is the National Institute of Corrections. That is a part of the Department of Justice in reference to the prisons system. What they do is that they'll go through, and once we apply for services, they'll take the assessment, or they'll take the needs that we are asking for. They would bid out with different companies and different organizations that go along with them and bid out those needs, and then they would send a team down to Beaufort County to interview the stakeholders. So they would interview commissioners, they would interview the sheriff, they would interview judges, the district attorney, the defense counsel for those, and so they can really get a good picture and understanding of who we are housing in our detention facility, whether they're pretrial detainee or whether they're spending time there because of sentences and things of that nature, the same type of information that was provided before. What they'll also do is that they'll take what they learn from that assessment, and then they'll help the community. They'll help us as a community and as a board understand what their findings are. They're not to come in and say, all right, well, Beaufort County is saying that they need a new facility, and this is the way that we can help you get that. They actually come in and look at what you have, and they may come back with the information saying that you have more than what you need, or that you have what you need, or that could be part of that process. In getting things starting with that, the sheriff had to apply for those services, and there's a copy of that, of his letter that we sent to them, and you can see that the specific part that we were asking for help on is called the JJSA, or the Jail and Justice System Assessment. The other items on that handout that you got, we did not request or apply for, but that could be something that later on, if a decision's ever made to upfit the facility that we have or to move to a new facility, that they would be available to help in that endeavor as well, using information that they've gotten previously. So once again, this was just for information for the Board of Commissioners, but if you have any questions, I would try to field those if I can.
Does anybody have anything for Chief Deputy Rhodes?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
do you have any kind of a time frame when you hope that this is done?
The information that I've received from NIC is that it's probably going to be somewhere the end of January, moving into mid-February, when they can get their information, get the team together, and have them on the ground here in Beaufort County.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
I'd like to thank the sheriff and Chief Deputy for moving forward on this initiative. I think it's long overdue, and look forward to the results of the study.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Okay, well, while you're up there, Chief, we have another item for you under items for decision.
Yes, sir. You'll see the information that I sent forward. That's a request for funding to make some repairs to existing items in the detention center. The first one The first item is in reference to replacing the round system in the detention center. The cost of that request is $1,184. The round system in general, that has been an item that has given us trouble over the last several years and has been cited specifically as some of the deficiencies that we've received in some of the inspections. What that system is each jailer has a fob, or it looks like a key fob that you would have with your car, that as they go through, when they do their rounds through the jail, as they actually lay eyes on all of the inmates and go through, that for each block there is a section on the wall that they would put the key fob on, and you would get a beep and you would get a light indicator that round has been met. That's done after each round for each block and section of the detention center. The problems that we've had with that system is that the brains of that system is a personal computer. And as that system got older and older and older, we got to the point where we could not upgrade it because of the format of the computer itself. And we were told time and time again that it would be costly, that you couldn't do it without doing construction. Well, we found after talking to several other vendors that you can do that, and that we can use the existing conduit and run an entirely new system in there to replace that. And that doesn't mean that if we're not doing rounds, that's not going to be seen as a deficiency, but it means that if we have the capability and we have the equipment that's functioning, if we are doing those rounds, which we feel that we are, that it's going to show that, and that's the only way that the Department of Health and Human Services sees that round as being administered timely and correctly. So that is that fix.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
You said that you found a vendor that said you could do it without doing all this new wiring and stuff.
Yes, sir.
Have you seen any of their work?
Yes, sir. The vendor that we're dealing with now, they have been dealing with us with 911 Center for
Have you
years.
seen any of their work that they went in the building that they didn't have to do a new wiring?
Not specifically, no, sir. But the level of work that this vendor has done for us in the past, and we're continue to work with them on all of the jobs they have. They're straight shooters, and they've told us no before. That we have asked them to extend projects and to do things, and they have told us that if they can't do it, then they've told us in the past
It's
that.
not that I don't believe the vendor. But you got some of these salesmen can sell a blind man pennies to put over his eyes and tell him to help him see.
Yes, sir.
So we want to make sure if they tell us that they can do this when they go in, that's what we expect.
Yes, sir.
I got one thing. You say you're going to use the existing conduit.
Yes.
So all they will do is just pull the old wire out
Yes.
and run new wire.
Yes.
And you've looked at the old conduit, and that is in good shape.
Yeah, it's Gately Incorporated, Signal One Engineering, the vendors that we're dealing with. Recently, within the last month, we've had an engineer from Signal One, the president of Gately, and our local tech that comes in and does the work. We all went through the jail. We were looking at the locking mechanisms. We were looking at this part of the product, as well as the cameras that we'll talk about in the next couple of minutes, to make sure that what we're putting before the commissioners is that we're ready to move on. So, and I feel satisfied. And once again, they are a business, and they are trying to make money. But in the past, with the way that we have done things with vendors, is that they get the opportunity to live up to the word that they say they will. And if they don't, then we look for other vendors that can. And I don't see where that would be any different with this job or this vendor.
Mr. Chairman, we can do separate motions, or all three of them together?
You want to?
Do we want to do separate motions for each one?
I think we can do all in one.
The second request is for $976.30. What this looks to address is state law and several other standards that are set as best practices throughout the country, has that inmates and the staff at the detention center or jail or prison, whatever it is, should have two-way access to each other that should be able to be set off by the inmates or the staff. Right now, we have a public address system that the control is all in the control room, meaning that if something is going on inside the blocks, the inmates that are in there have to do something that's contrary to rules to show the jailer that something's going on and to call into the block so they can talk, they can speak back and forth. What this request does is that we're actually going to look to install a ruggedized button or signal that can be pressed to signal the control room that could start the conversation back and forth. Where this is really important to us is that if we're relying on the person who's watching the monitors in the control room, that same person that's watching the monitors may be answering the phone, maybe answering a question if someone calls in to see if an individual's in the jail or what sort of bond they have. If they are having to stop looking at the monitors to look something up in the computer, that's taking away from them looking at the monitors, which is their primary function. And it might take 3 seconds or 5 seconds to miss a signal, but if that plunger is hit, then that can be the way to indicate the jailers that there is a problem and could stop an emergency from happening before it actually gets started. So that's what that request is for. Okay. The third request, this item is $65,204.26. That item is to completely upgrade and re-outfit the surveillance system that's in the detention center. Right now, we are functioning with about 20 cameras. With the facility that we have that has a lot of bends and curves and curls in it, we don't have very good line of sight. We don't have good line of sight when the officers are walking through the facility, but we also have a lot of blind spots that aren't covered by the cameras. This is a new request. All three of these are new. The information that we're bringing before you really started in July when we had Lieutenant Catherine Bryan was brought in as our new jail administrator. The sheriff and I asked her to do an assessment of the jail, to go through and let us know the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we're dealing with. What do we have in front of us, and what we can fix or what we need to fix immediately, and what we can wait on some of the other things. So that's what she did. The first conversation that I had with her before she even completed her assessment was, I asked her what's the biggest issue that she's seen, and it was line of sight. It was the lack of or it was the blind spots that are inside the jail. So I asked her, I said, show me. I said, I hear what you're saying, but show me what you're talking about. So we did. We were looking at the monitors together, and we had a detention officer go into the jail, and I can actually see where inside the block we could see them as opposed to where we couldn't, and there was a lot of blind spots that were in there. The second part of that was that I asked her how immediate we needed to address this. How immediate? Is this something that we could wait until the next budget process to do that? Because I knew that was going to be a question as far as the timing that would come from the board. The answer that she gave me, I knew it was important because she was looking for other places and other areas in the budget that we could move funds around, and she actually included the video visitation. And I told her no. I told her, based on the history that we have had just with that particular part of the jail, that is not something that we can move around. But that told me how serious it was that we were looking at that, and for the next month and a half, we put different things together, and that led up to the information that you have here. So it was very important for us to get this done, and we've got the vendor that's in place that we do trust. That's where we've gotten the quotes from, and we're looking to move on this as quickly as we can to try to shore up and make that facility as safe as it can be for the inmates that are in it and for the officers that are working there every day. Does anyone have any questions?
Have anything?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
This is to the manager. Have you looked at the budget to tell me the projected surpluses within the sheriff's department or deficits to date?
Mark asked can address that, but they're about where they need to be. I mean, if you look year to year, they're roughly running about where they need to be.
In other words, you're saying that we're on budget.
You're roughly on budget. A little bit above
spending-
on some, a little bit below on others, but roughly overall, you're about on
So
budget.
there's not a surplus.
That's right.
There's not a projected surplus.
We don't project one, that's right. At this time, I mean. Of course, there are things that can change. I mean, in their business, inmate medical could blow a budget all to pieces. It just depends upon who you have coming in, so.
Yeah, I know, but usually at the end of the year, every year for the last, I don't know, number of years, we've had surpluses within
Yeah.
the various jail budgets.
That's right.
So why don't we have them this year? Because that budget was increased.
If I may add to that.
Go ahead.
The lines that we carry surpluses just about every year are at a point where if nothing happens tomorrow or through the year, then we will have surpluses. We just can't bank on that. I believe, Commissioner Booth, you and I had a conversation on it during the budget time.
And I'm not gonna lie to you. I told you this was gonna happen, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
You had 600, in 6 months, you had your chest stuck out. In 6 months, we say $653,000. And 6 months later, you got 50 cents. I rest my case.
If I may, I don't believe the assessment is
Well-
is that accurate.
Well, that's what you say.
And I
read that too.
And I told you during that budget workshop that if I was wrong on some of the cuts
You
that we
did.
made, that I would come back and I would tell you that I was wrong.
You did.
I'm not ready to make that statement yet.
Well, I tell you this, Chief. I appreciate the fine lady because she just verified some of the things that we said that was wrong to start with.
Yes, sir.
It's nothing new.
Yes, sir.
Those blind spots been there ever since the jail been there.
Yes, sir.
And I gotta tell you again, you did tell us you had a surplus. It was all over the paper.
Yes, sir. And we did.
At least y'all need to do our budget. That was in the paper too.
Okay. Okay. We did have a surplus last year.
Yes.
If things go on like they're going right now, we will have a sizable surplus in the same lines that we've had before. That's safekeeping. We had a line item of $200,000 in the budget. So far, we've used $9,000 of that.
Good.
If we needed to, I feel confident that we could do a budget amendment on those same lines that we cut. But then, just like you've mentioned before, if the lights go out tomorrow and I've got to send every inmate out of there for a month at a time, then I'll have to come back to you again. And at that point, I'll probably come with a statement of, yeah, we did cut too much. But I'm not ready to now because the funds are there.
Okay.
You know, on the lines. We front-end load with the way that we purchase equipment, and even with that front-end loading, I feel confident with the numbers that I see, backed up with conversations that I've had with the county manager and the finance officer, to believe that the numbers are there. Otherwise, I would not be standing here before you.
I believe you,
Yes, sir.
but I just couldn't lie to you.
Mr. Chairman, when everybody else gets the chance, I have another question.
You finished?
Yeah.
With what you just said and what you just said, if you've only used $9,000 of safekeeping, you got a $200,000 budget, and you're 5 months into the process, you've got about $80,000 surplus in that one account right now. You've got enough money to pay for this. You know, I don't have a problem with doing the things that you're talking about doing, but you can come back to us for more money when it's justifiable. I don't think we have ever turned anybody down. I'm just trying to save the taxpayers some money and not leave that money sitting there to be shifted off and spent for something else.
I understand and I agree. And if that's the way that the board wishes, then the sheriff and I feel that it's important enough to move on this now.
When do you want to start this project? As soon as possible?
I've got purchase orders in my folder right now that if it is approved, that we'll make contact with the vendor and set up the time for them to do the construction on bringing this in.
Okay. Mr. Langley?
And I spoke with you earlier about this, the cameras and all the equipment that you're going to be purchasing. If there's a new facility, it will go to the new facility.
Yes, sir. Well, it has the capability. If we were to build a new facility, if we were to move into a new facility tomorrow, there would still be a need to have a facility at the basement of the courthouse where it is now. So there would still need to be some of those systems in place. But yes, all of the equipment that we're looking to put into the detention center now would be able to be moved to a new facility.
Mr. Chairman,
ahead.
explain that, Charlie, why you would still need a system now. This would just be for court, right? I mean.
Yes.
if you had a- I mean, you're just transferring them in for court that day and back to the new jail that night.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Yeah, so you're not talking about a whole, I mean, I want the public to understand, we're not talking about keeping 60 inmates down there, 60 in a new jail. We're talking about bringing in however many they want for court that day.
That's correct.
And
It
back
could,
that night. I didn't want there to be any misunderstanding on the part of the public, because how many would you generally have for a day in court?
if it's district court and district court alone, it might be anywhere from a half dozen to a dozen.
Yeah. that's- so
If we're
talking
running, if we're
about-
running 4 different courts with administrative superior court, then it might be 24 people that we would have actually in our detention facility that would need to go up to court. So, with the plans of, if you do have to transport them in, you want it to be one time in, one time out, not throughout the course of the day. So we would still need to have a temporary detention facility somewhere inside that courthouse.
The one thing to me that you're never going to solve with cameras or anything else is number 8 in your jail administrator's dialogue, the segregation of prisoners. There is no way to segregate prisoners in the current facility. I mean, you don't have but 2 individual cells.
You are correct. You are correct.
And,
That's not wholly correct.
well, let me finish, and then you can discount everything I say.
Yeah, keep going.
You have basically group holding areas. Is that not correct? You don't have, but it's my understanding there are 85 cells in that jail. 13 are for women, which is a group holding area. 2 are individual cells, and the rest is other holding areas, where you cannot put an individual by himself. Am I right or wrong on that?
You are correct. If I may,
Yeah.
85 is the max if the numbers are right on the money.
Right.
If we have 85 adult males, that would be what our capacity would be. But anytime that you've got a female, then that means that there's got to be a block for females.
From my understanding, that was a 13, that was a capacity of 13.
With the block that we use right now, yes, sir.
Yeah, so you're subtracting 13 from 85
That's how.
if you have a woman inmate.
Yes, that is correct. And also,
Then your 2 gives you 15 from 85, so basically, you're able to handle 70 males if you have a female inmate and 2 individual cells, so 72 males unless you have a juvenile, in which case you can't put a male in there.
I can make this answer as complicated as you want me to.
Yeah, I don't.
Because we
I don't
also-
want it too complicated. I just want to know.
It's almost like playing a shell game.
Yeah.
That if you've got adult males, if you've got males that are 16 or 17, then you've got to house those differently. Females, you have to house differently. If you've got somebody who's sick or hurt, you have to house them differently. If there are behavior issues, you have to house them differently. We'll also have, if multiple suspects are arrested for the same crime, we try to keep those people together, or keep them away from each other. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We also have a history of, the people that work in the detention facility, they become masters at solving problems before they become problems. So you'll have people that are, we'll call them frequent flyers, that one just can't be housed with this person no matter what the circumstances are. So we'll play that. But what we also use is we try to utilize everything that we have to our means to try to get the job done effectively, which means that there are times where we will utilize facilities that are outside of the county to help us out with the different segregation and the different things that we have to do to stay legal, and also to do our jobs as effectively as we can, because just the investigation might not end at the time of the arrest. There are times where investigators are still having to question people, where we're still gathering information on crimes that have occurred, so we also have to be mindful of that as well when we are mindful of that. So I hope that answered your question at least a little bit.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, but basically, you still just have, other than those 15 places to hold them, you just have from my understanding, 2 large areas.
We have, no, it's multiple
How
blocks.
many more, how many blocks?
We have A block through H block,
So you have 7, 8,
eight blocks.
8 blocks.
8 blocks, with the 2 segregation blocks, 2 single cells, that's G block,
G block.
which are usually full. We usually have someone inside those cells at all times.
Is one of A through H the one that would handle the females?
That's C block.
That would be C. So
Yes, sir.
really, you have, for adult male prisoners, you basically have 6 blocks outside of those 2 blocks. The-
Yes.
The female and, okay,
Yes.
that's what I was trying to get at the whole time, 6 blocks
Okay.
to handle.
Well, that was easy. You should have just asked that way.
So 6 blocks to handle, basically 50 prisoners.
I got
Yes.
two questions to add. I think the segregation question's been cleared up. How long with this video system that's going to be installed will you be warehousing or storing the data before throwing it out?
We typically, at least 90 days. At least 90 days. That is seems to be an industry standard. And with the way, we don't use the cloud. We use internal hard drives to keep the data. 90 days is what we keep everything. If there is anything of evidentiary value, that is immediately put in a disk and backed up so it could be entered into evidence, and then that's kept for whatever the crime is. If it's a misdemeanor, it'll be kept for at least 2 years after the adjudication of the crime. If it's a felony, we may have to keep that forever. We may have to keep that indefinitely. But the actual information that's on the hard drive, we'll keep that for at least 90 days, or until the server starts to get to the point where we need to do some maintenance, but that's at least 90 days out.
Well, the second part is totally different. Switching gears, there are about 72 people, 74 people in the jail, according to the jail report that's in this book. Going through that report, there are 8 or 9 people that have been in there for longer than 6 months. One person is in there for identity theft who has a $5,000 bond, and they've been in there for, I believe it's 17 months. At $50 a day, we can afford to pay his bond
I told you.
and put him out on the street. So, and I will say this, for all of the pressure that I have put on the district attorney in the past, I have sent the district attorney emails in the past, every 2 or 3 months saying, it looks like you got these people in there, what are they still doing there? He has responded very well. And so I sent him an email today, and he responded the same way that he's been responded. Thank you very much. I wasn't aware of this. I'll look into it. Usually these people disappear within a month or 2 after he gets that particular email. So if you take 8 people off of the 72 that's in there, you're back to 64 people. 64 people in a jail that is supposed to hold 85 people. I'm very concerned in the interest of the public and your $20 million that we're even talking about a new jail in here today. And very concerned, and I'm also concerned the letter that the sheriff has sent has some implications in it that it looks like he's asking for a study for a new jail to the federal agency. And I've dealt with that federal agency. They come to a lot of events, conventions, commissioners of that, and I've talked to them several times. They're very nice people, they're very competent people, and so, but I am concerned that we're back into talking about building a new jail. We thought we had dodged that bullet, and by keeping the pressure on the system that we have and managing it to, as the chief said today, managing what we have to its best ability, we're being very successful in avoiding spending this $20 million that people have wanted to spend in the past, and I intend to continue to be successful in avoiding spending that $20 million.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, the application that was sent, the information that we sent, that is in reference to the entire project of, the NIC will assist in letting the individuals know if they need a new jail, if they are going to move forward, then they'll help along that process. The part that we've asked for is for specifically that the jail and justice system assessment, and only the jail and justice assessment.
Well, we need to retype this letter, because that's not what it says.
Mr. Chairman,
Go
I'd
ahead.
like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward and authorize the replacement of the round system for a cost of $1,184. As part of that motion, I'd also like to include the intercom system for a cost of $976.30. And also as part of that motion, to upgrade the surveillance system at a cost of $65,204.26 for a total cost of $67,364.56. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion?
Yes,
Chairman.
I just want to go back to what Commissioner Richardson said, that they would go ahead and spend it out of the money that they already have.
That's what I would like to do. I would like to ask
And I was going to
Commissioner
say that
Buzzio
too.
to amend that, spend it out of money that's already in the budget, and they can come back to us if they need money for special purposes.
Do you have enough to do what you need to do?
Yes.
You think you'll take that out of that fund, that
If,
transferring prisoners fund? Is that what-
if given the opportunity, I'd like to speak with the finance officer, and we may do like we've done before. It may come out of 8 or 9 different lines,
Okay.
if we can do
I don't
that.
have a problem.
I mean, I don't care, I was just
Yes.
asking.
But yes, mainly the, probably services for professional medical, inmate safekeeping, and possibly meals would be probably the biggest
What
three.
I was trying to think of.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Would anyone, Commissioner Richmond, would you like to make an amendment?
I can amend my motion.
Pardon?
Do you want me to amend my motion?
If you will amend that.
I'll amend the
would be great.
motion. And I'll amend the motion to include that the amount of $67,364.56 at the sheriff's and the chief deputy's discretion, who will remove it from whatever fund they want to remove it from. But also, as part of that, if they see that the funds that they remove the money from, is there becomes a need for it, that they can come back before this board and get that money replenished.
Chief, you said your captain wanted to move some money from another fund, and you told him that not to bother that. What was that fund?
That was for video visitation.
So this is still off limits? Video conferencing money is still off limits, as far as taking it that?
It is still one of the priorities that we have to implement video visitation fully.
I understand, but when they made the motion to get the funds from wherever you can, 7, 8, 9 line items, video conferencing wasn't one of them, I hope.
We're going to need every dime in that line to implement the system that we'll do.
Okay.
That's why I left it up to them to make
Okay,
that decision.
we have a amended to the motion. Do I have a second to that amendment?
I'll second.
Have a second to the amendment. All in favor? Is there any further discussion on that? All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Rhodes.
Thank you.
Wasn't bad, Chief.